Hi everybody, Danny and Danny from Marvin here. This is a brand new Noodles and Shreds episode 11. This time Danny is joining us. He lives in the south side of Chicago, which is like 30 minutes away, so we never actually get to meet when we're home. It's very rare, so he decided to come up here to educate you fools. So
we meet on Skype.
Yeah, we meet occasionally. But this one's gonna be about technique, about how to practice technique. We do, as Marvin, we do a lot of master classes in jazz colleges, and we always talk about that because we figured that people practice technique in a way that's wrong. So I'm gonna let Danny elaborate a little bit about this.
Yeah, it's very easy to see that everybody practices technique in a way that's wrong because we don't have any. All right, so we'll talk about three things that people do wrong, and if you do it right, you'll have great technique. I wrote a small article about it, but that was just a tiny taste. So we're gonna talk way more.
Give you a big taste.
Yeah,
big technical taste.
A big chunk. So the first thing that people do wrong when we approach technique, they approach it with a computer game mentality, which means this: they play something wrong, like a passage or a lick, a few times, and then play it right a couple times, and then they think, "Oh, I got it." But unfortunately or fortunately, that's not the way our brain works. So when you played it like 4 times wrong and right twice, you really practice it wrong 4 times and then right 2 times. So you're gonna mess it up more than you're gonna play it right. So you always want to play in a speed when you have 0 mistakes. Okay, so a speed when you can play it perfectly. Perfectly mean that good sound, good relaxed technique, good time, good everything. Like make it sound great as slow as you need to. If you need to go to 50 BPM and play whole notes, play 50 BPM whole notes. That's where you are. But if you do that and then you notch up the metronome, by in an hour or 2, you're gonna be able to play it fast, and your technique gonna get better. So I would say that's the first thing that people should be aware of.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit, the theory here is that the brain, the way we learn, is that if I do something, the brain doesn't automatically, the brain doesn't discern between mistakes and non-mistakes. It just learns what you teach it. So, like he said, if you play a passage, a lick, and you have like tension in there, or you play a wrong note, or you do something wrong and you do it wrong 4 times, right twice, that's the statistic you're gonna carry into your playing. So you gotta get it 10 out of 10 perfect every time. And you just gotta find that speed where you can do it. And I like to say lately that it seems like obvious, but it's a good thing to remember that fast is just like slow, but fast. Meaning that technically, your goal is to not do anything when you're going full speed and when you're going like 1/10 of that speed. The idea is to teach the body how to maintain that same kind of relaxed thing as things accelerate. So what's the second thing?
Second thing that I think most people do wrong when they try to get technique is they try to make the things they do okay better, instead of trying to do things they can't do and do them okay. And I'll explain. People get really obsessed with warm-up techniques, right? Warm-up attitudes, or they go like, "Oh, I study this back thing. That's how I start. That's how I work on my technique, and do the same thing every day and try to notch it up." But music doesn't really work like that. Especially technique doesn't work like that. And I can give you a couple of examples. So let's say you're a jazz musician and you practice all of me. And you practice all of me every day. And, it's not gonna... You will never get to a level on all of me that you're playing like the best player in history on all of me. And you're going to play the best solo in history on all of me. But when you're going to have to play all the things you're going to suck. Right? It's like, it's funny to say because it's obvious, but it's also not obvious because most people don't do that. right? They work on the same thing, thinking it's gonna be great. I'll give you another example, and I have friends that did it, and we always used to argue, and it's funny looking back on those arguments when neither of us are technique, and looking today when one of us are technique. So,
wow, slam, zing.
You know,
if you're watching that,
you
know
know
who
who
you are.
And but it's a funny thing because it's stuff that became it was theory and now it's obviously practice. But I like to take Vinny Colaiuta as a perfect example, because Vinny, I think, in my mind, is famous for how great he grooves, like simple grooves, like playing with Sting or with Jeff Beck. But if you only practice playing those simple grooves, like if you only practice playing like, oh, I'm gonna practice quarter notes until my quarter notes are the best, and then I'm gonna practice eighth notes until my eighth notes are the best, then you will never get to a point where your quarter notes are the best. You're gonna stay stuck in the same place. Like, and again, Vinny is a perfect example. He can do all the craziest shit, but when it comes out the most, when he plays the simplest shit.
Yeah, it's like the simple things just sit on so much knowledge that they get like this extra power to them. I think same goes with the great gypsy players, like the way they comp quarter notes. It feels like, when you hear Django jumping in and starting to play rhythm, it's like the whole music comes to life. And not to say anything bad about his cousins, but it's like, like, I don't know what they did, make shoes or something and play guitar on the weekends. Yeah. But like, it's when it's rooted in so much like ability, then the simple things kind of get an extra dimension to them. But what you said originally, I think it's super important. Like a lot of times we kind of go in a line in our learning. We just try to get kind of yesterday's mind frame just a step forward. But a lot of times you really need to learn how to do something that's brand new, that you don't know how to do yet. It's not really... You see it a lot with the way that people improve. You can spend eternity moving between 0 and 1,000,000, and you can spend eternity moving between 0 and 1. You know what I mean? It's like when you're growing, yeah, we're all constantly growing, but if you set your sights kind of in a specific way, you can go farther. And I think the thing that's in common with people that get better is that they're not so married to the idea that they know exactly what getting better entails. They keep an open mind about what that might be, like musically, theoretically, technically. If you assume you know everything and you're just moving forward between two dots, you're usually moving between 0 and 1, right? If you assume that there's like, the thing to shoot for is that some people sound great. Like Charlie Parker sounds great. Django sounds great. You probably, if you're watching this, don't sound as great as them, right? And
even if you don't watch it.
Yeah. But the idea is that we do have concrete examples of people who reached very, very high heights. And the idea is like, well, how do I get there? And just practicing maybe exact what you're doing and with the exact picking and the exact everything the same way, cranking up the metronome can get you, kind of forward in a paradigm, but it doesn't create a paradigm shift. A lot of times, like the whole thing of playing perfect, example one of why people aren't getting better, which is just to nail things perfectly, gets you from point A's to point B's. But this has to do with redefining point B's. So a lot of times you can see your goal very clearly, but then you also have to keep a mind open enough for the goal to change. I think that's the big point.
Yeah. One other maybe explanation of that would make perfect sense about why being able to play fast make you play slow better. If you think about it, the difference in time feel and in what makes us feel like something is grooving, we're talking about milliseconds. Like how many milliseconds are noticeable, Danny?
I think about 50, something like that. Or no, 10.
I think 10 are definitely noticeable. Right, so 10 milliseconds are noticeable, right? So if you can't play the difference between a 16 note, a sextuplet, and a 30-second note, like if you don't know the difference between Takita, 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 takademi, 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 takita, 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 ta. If you don't know that difference, how are you gonna be able to, your mind will be able to understand the difference in 10 milliseconds?
Yeah, just where you place your 16th notes or something like that. Like the thing that actually makes a guy like Vinny so incredible is just, the way when he's playing like where he's placing them makes you feel a certain way. It's like surgical.
And it's so consistent, but it's not a mistake. Like, this guy obviously knows what he's doing. All those guys.
Yeah, Steve Gadd, all these people, they have like their own unique way of playing very simple things in a very tasty way. And it's better than, it's not machine like. Machine like doesn't have that sensibility. It has to be rooted in a lot of music. What's the third thing?
Third thing, you should go more about it. It's about how people are unwilling to understand where they are, like how far they have to go back and change if we want to get better, like their mental blockage.
Yeah, teaching a lot, you get to really see, sit in front of a person and ask, I always ask myself, well, what's the thing stopping this person from evolving, and it's never their body, it's like your fingers aren't too short, you're not too fat, you're not too anything to do anything. It's always in your mind. And I think one of them is kind of an intellectual block, a philosophical block, and one of them is really a psychological block. The intellectual one is not being able to see the scope of the problem, and like you're just overwhelmed by possibilities to a point where you actually overestimate how many possibilities there are. Like, for example, if you take a look at the harmony lessons I put up, like if you're trying to learn scales, if you just don't know any scales and it seems like mission impossible to learn scales, then there's millions. Well, there aren't millions, there are 7, and those 7 have modes, and there are 12 keys, so there's a lot of stuff, a lot of ground you need to cover. But if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get a vision for the scope of the problem. Same with rhythm. There are these subdivisions, there are these tempos, there are these meters to learn, but everything is finite in a way and infinite in the way you combine it, because it's music, and there's obviously you can make infinite amount of conclusions with these materials, but in each subject you're dealing with a finite, pretty large number of possibilities that you can master if you give it years. But once you're unwilling to ask yourself, well, how many scales are there? How many fingerings do I need to play this thing? Like, what, just kind of starting to calculate. If you're playing bass, it's like, how many ways can I use my 2 fingers to pass through strings? How many ways can I slap? If you're picking, like ups and downs, just asking yourself simple mathematical questions about the amounts of possibilities. If you're not able to start asking these questions, then you're quickly overwhelmed by saying, well, there's an infinite way, so I should just practice the shit I already know how to do. That's the wrong way to think about it. Now, the second block that people run to is a psychological one, and is the more serious one.
Yeah, what's the main one?
Which is, people are not willing to see where they are. You too, probably. You know what I mean? It's like, and practicing becomes a meditation of reaffirming lies. So a lot of people, especially the ones who consider themselves professional musician, their practice is the time where they feel cozy. That's the time where everything else disappears, and they're with their instrument and they're just reaffirming, I am good regardless of how I sound. But you are not good regardless of how you sound. You're actually exactly as good as you sound. That's what music is. You make sounds, and how good they are or how bad they are is how good you are at doing it. And this blindness is very unhealthy for progress, because you can't assess yourself. If you can't listen to Charlie Parker and then to you and understand the differences, then it's going to be very hard to move forward. So this, and
I think that's also the question. But I'm not sure if you talked about it, but if music is objective or subjective.
I mean, we all in this room we believe it's objective. You know,
I think everybody does to a point, because if you...
I don't think that's the question. I think the question is, can it be measured objectively? And can you measure things in a way? And I think everybody can. Can you measure recordings of players and scrutinize them in an equal way if you're not involved? Like, let's say Charlie Parker to Coltrane to Dexter Gordon, and like just validate rhythm.
Well, we just
harmony.
did it. It was a perfect example. We just heard the album that Dizzy Gillespie did with Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins, and
Sonny Stitt won.
For us, it's very obvious.
Yeah, he killed him.
But even people that can see it, right? Which I don't understand how you can see it, because it's so much better. Sonny Stitt just, I don't know, it's 10 million times better. But even if you can see it, you can see that Charlie Parker is better than somebody that just picked up the saxophone yesterday, right? You don't say, oh, no, it's different. This guy has a different vision, because he doesn't have a vision yet. But so that's the one thing I think everybody can agree. I think when people start to disagree...
What, that Charlie Parker is better than a toddler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think everybody can agree that they can use the word better. Some people can't if they play avant-garde. No, but if they don't, then they can agree, right? Some people think that the toddler is just stream of consciousness. but if you can agree, I think we have a place to start talking. And
but I think the point is that let's assume that you agree, and those of you who don't agree should probably find a
probably don't like Marvin. Honestly, you probably don't like Marvin.
You don't like us. You're just watching this like jealous and hateful, which we do have a lot of you guys. So thanks for watching. But in all honesty, like when you're listening to recordings, you got to start scrutinizing. That's your job as a musician. Be able to use the same kind of scrutiny, rhythmically, harmonically, whatever way that you would listen to any sort of jazz record or any record with, and then being able to see yourself in the same light and just ask yourself, well, how am I doing? Like, forget about and also don't take it to the other extreme. Like, I'm worthless, I'm talentless, boo-hoo. It's like, people's biggest fear is that they're gonna find out that they're a sham, that they don't have talent. But that's a silly way of looking at it, because regardless if that's true or not, you can still measure yourself, concretely if you think about the elements that make up music.
Even when people that say that are always, to me, I always find them to be the most, like they say they don't have ego, but they have the most ego because they're unwilling to change.
Yeah.
It's like their escape to say, oh, I'm worthless, so what's the point, basically?
Yeah, what's the point of working? But if you can start analyzing yourself just in terms of like accuracy, you know what I mean? Like the thing that's very in common with people I consider to be the very best players is, in a way, they're very accurate in their rhythms, they're very accurate in their harmonic choices, and they're very accurate in their tone. So if you can just kind of judge yourself by those standards, then maybe you'll start seeing how you could move. You know what I mean? How you could reapply those first two principles we were talking about. Really, like this whole conversation about getting better and about practicing that we did here. If you just simplify the 3 points that we're making, it's just being able to see where you are compared to somebody else. Be able to define some sort of point that you're not at yet, and then like through exercises that you design yourself and execute perfectly, pull yourself closer to that. And then once you're there, maybe you can see a little bit farther and redefine that point and get there.
I actually thought about another thing right now when we were talking.
Shoot.
So before that, the one example actually I wanted you to give about people not willing to understand where they are is, for example, some people pick in a very weird way, right?
Oh, yeah. I see that all the time. My students, come to me and they hold the pick in a very weird way, like, I don't know, wrist up or something. And then I'm like, well, you're not able to hit these things in time because, I do it this way, but you could do it this way. Ingve does it that way. Like, there's a few ways that work, but people are so unwilling to physically change what they're doing. They're like, okay, no, like,
how can am I a kid? Am I?
How can I stay physically exactly the same, but get your teachings. Well, you can't. You know what I mean? That's what I'm teaching you. Physical change. You know what I mean? I'm not saying do it exactly like me. Let's take a look at another 10 examples of people that play different than me and figured something that works out. But why is that thing that you figured out intuitively that has no historic precedence valid?
Or some guy in a music store in the middle of nowhere taught you when you were 12.
Right.
Why is that the thing that stuck? And for us, like I changed my embouchure quite a bit. It had not quite a bit, but it happened a few times in the last few years. And Danny changed his right hand technique.
Yeah, for me, this is like my 5th or 6th incarnation as a player, just changing completely.
And I would say that for us, when we discover something that's so basic that what we can do in a better way, we're really happy about it because, like, oh my god, everything I'm gonna do is it just brings back to life that process of mechanical practicing between point A and B. You know, where you can just do things perfectly and design exercises and move inch your way forward. Before that, you're kind of actually locked into this world of technique where you can do what you do already to its basically full potential if you practiced. Well,
you know?
and I think we also have done it so many times that by now it's like it's really familiar and nice to do it because it's like we can really estimate how long it's gonna take and the steps in the middle. But for people, when we discover like drummers need to hold the sticks differently, or again saxophone players add different embouchure, or it's like people just get freaked out, and the response is not to practice. It's like the response is like, no. I'm gonna ignore that. I'm gonna put a mental block on my mind. I don't like it. That makes me feel icky inside, and I'm gonna just do the same shit I do, and try not to talk to anybody that might confront me, or challenge my point of view. So I think that's something that a lot of people do too, and and then we're like, it's like somebody. I think a lot of people wanted to play, like, grow up and still listen, like, someone like still listen to music that very technical. Let's say we're taking guitar. Let's say guitar players, for example. No, let's say saxophone players, for example, right? And we're like, oh man, I love Charlie Parker. Dude, Charlie Parker is insane. He blows my mind. The stuff he does, rhythmical. And then we start playing saxophone, and we practice wrong. And we practice, and we can't get it. So what do we do? What a lot of people do in response, like, what I really like? Likonitz.
With all due respect. No, I know. He sounds like...
No, for real. And it's like, we're like, it's like, listen how he play. Like, he doesn't need to show off. I love it. People are like, he doesn't need to show off.
Right. Just like, taking a dude that sounds like a better version of them.
Yeah, nobody shows off. It's like everybody just plays what we can play. It's like, that's how it goes. It's like, nobody, even us, we don't do that. It's like, we just play what we can play. And like Danny always tell people, and it's really funny because it's really true, there are 2 levels when it comes to playing. It's like when it's either impossible or it's easy. So anything you can do is easy, and anything that you can't do is just impossible because you can't do it.
Because people say, like, you play a lot of hard things. It's like, it's not hard for me.
Yeah.
I know exactly how to do them. No effort.
Yeah, when people ask us, how long does it take you guys to learn those unison lines? Like, you don't want to know how long if you ask these questions, you don't want to know how long it takes us.
Like when we write like a new fast unison line, it's like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like...
And we're like, that's exactly. And we're like, okay, we're going to play it like it's fine. But again, it's because we practice a lot of technique and we have it in the right way. So the 4th thing that I think that stops people from developing technique, so that's a surprise for who stuck that long. That's the hidden track. So the 4th thing that I thought about is people expect to get better immediately, and if not, they don't like it. So, you have to learn how to live with that thing in your gut, in your belly, that says, you suck, and you can't do it. But you have to live with it for sometimes years, right? It's like, people are like, I suck. Practice 4 hours, and then it's like, I worked on it, that's good.
Yeah, I'm done.
It's like, no, you need to practice. Like, if you want to practice technique...
Yeah, it's relentless. It's just there.
When we met, I was getting out of the army, and I couldn't play saxophone at all. And I practiced technique every day between 7 a.m. I used to, with a stopwatch, so I won't waste time. Between 7 a.m. and and 11 p.m. every day. And I took half an hour for breakfast and half an hour for dinner and an hour for lunch, and just practiced all day long technique. And after 6 months of that, you can calculate how many hours it was, I still sucked and had no technique. That's how much time it takes. Okay,
Yeah.
that's so you can understand. So it takes a while. So if you do like, I did 4 hours, like, yeah, you didn't solve it. You have to still have that feeling in your gut that you suck. And if you don't, right? If you don't, you're gonna push it away and be like, I don't want anybody to challenge me. Let's not listen to anybody that say something or plays better. Or
The
does
funny
anything
thing
better.
about this whole technique thing and being able to execute all this stuff is that it's a very exclusive club because of how long it takes and how much you can't fake it. And it's waiting for you if you're willing to put in the time and you're not stupid in the brain, because if it's, people that are dumb, and there are lots of dumb fucks. There's lots of people who are dumb. Some of you are probably dumb.
No, none of you on our page.
But,
if you're on our page, you can't be too dumb.
No, but seriously, and I think you can be not dumb in the way you practice but you got to think. That's the thing that makes you dumb, not thinking. It's not that you think and you can't, because it's all very simple. It's if you refuse to think, then you are a dumb practicer. And you got to think your way through it. So I'm not encouraging you to give up and just be like, dumb, and hit yourself in the head. I'm just saying, choose not to be that way. Choose to think your way through it and get better. Because just spending the time isn't enough. The time has to be aware time where you're analyzing problems as they come and solve them. Right? You don't have to know mathematics to do it. You just got to be like, how come I pick up and hit 2 strings at a time instead of 1 string? Well, I'll just do it more. Well, no. Maybe you shouldn't do it more. Maybe you should take a look, think about maybe the angle, solve that specific problem, move to the next thing. How come whenever I play a C major scale, I keep hitting a D flat? Well, don't hit a D flat, look, see where that...
And if you don't know, ask somebody.
Yeah, just confront the things you don't know and figure out ways of solving it. And if you can't do it on your own, seek help.
From somebody that can do it, though. Yeah. Seek help from somebody that can do it, because you don't want to go to people that try to escape what we're talking about and ask them, because
right.
they're trying to escape.
The great way to gauge whether somebody is trustworthy about music is how they sound. That's the only way. That's the only way to gauge yourself or anybody around you. If somebody talks a lot, like a college professor, and then you go to his show and you leave feeling very unimpressed, that guy just got a job because he got a job, but that doesn't mean you should trust him. You should only trust people who you like just based on the quality of their playing. That's, to me, that's always been true. And that's why I had a really hard time in Berkeley. A lot of people sounded like garbage. And that's what, it's hard to be in an institution because of that. But I think that honestly, that's the only way to kind of keep yourself safe and keep yourself getting better. Only listen to the best and only take their opinion seriously.
Yeah. All right, that's it on technique.
Yeah, that's it, I think, on this video. So, facebook.com/MarvinMusic, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.